This is day 13 of the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge. My name is David Hooper. The website, bigpodcast.com. My job is to help you grow a big audience and spread your message, and the way we are doing that is via podcasting. When you've got a solo podcast, you have the ultimate in flexibility. You can release episodes when you want, change things up when you want. Don't like the intro? Change it. Bumper music? Change it. Kick your sponsor to the curb, or triple your sponsors. Your choice. You can do anything you want when you've got a solo podcast. Beyond that, solo podcasting builds important skills. These are skills that translate elsewhere. Speaking, emailing, anything communication related, you will be helped by having a solo podcast. How often are you at an event, maybe a meeting, a wedding, funeral? Somebody says, "Hey man, you mind getting up and saying a few words?" You're going to be able to do that thanks to your solo podcast, and I'm going to sneak those skills right up on you. This 30-day program, it's simple, it's easy. We're taking it inch by inch, building it brick by brick. And when you finish, you're going to be super smooth on the mic. People are going to hear you, and they're going to say, "That guy is super smooth on the mic." But the first thing you need to do if you're just joining me, you need to go back and listen to the intro episode. That explains the what and the why of everything happening here. To get that and the other days of the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge, go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. It's on the World Wide Web, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Previously, day 12, here's what we talked about: hurdles and how to get over them. Your listeners have things in between where they are and where they want to be. As you get to know your listeners, you are going to find that there are patterns in the stories that they tell you, the same things that are standing in the way of where they want to go. On day 7, we talked about false beliefs. That's something very similar. It's a little bit different because it's all in their mind. But like these hurdles, these beliefs keep them where they are now, keeping them from where they need to be. Today, the focus, it's misconceptions. What are the misconceptions about what it is that you teach? And if you are not teaching anything, try this. What are the misconceptions about who you are? Here's why this is important. People don't get how things really are. We live in a fantasy world. We tell ourselves stories. And some of those stories are those hurdles. They are the things that keep us where we are now because it's comfortable, instead of getting to where we say we want to be. So like the hurdles, the mental hurdles, those false beliefs, many misconceptions, and some of the things that you can talk about are also strictly mental. But I'll give you a personal one if you don't want to go that deep. Remember, if you can make these personal, that is going to help your listeners get connected to you. So here's one that's radio related. I once talked to a morning radio DJ. This guy was 6 to 10 a.m. And he told me this. He said, "People think I'm only here in the morning. I show up at 6 a.m., I turn on the mic, I do my show. I've got a 20-hour work week, 6 to 10 a.m., 5 days a week." His listeners thought he was that talented. The reality, though, was that this guy was waking up early, well before 6 a.m., getting to the station early, prepping the show the previous day, doing live events, staying out late at night, not getting a lot of sleep, not even taking care of himself like he should have because he was so dedicated to that show. Maybe you do a podcast about fitness. Let me give you an example from a guy I knew who was a comic, a big dude, used to do a lot of big guy jokes about his weight, self-deprecating stuff. One time when he was talking about his weight, used a common excuse. He said, "Yeah, it's in my jeans." And then he said, "These are my jeans," and pulled out a big sack of McDonald's food. But that joke, he thought it was based on a misconception. It's in my jeans. He was saying, no, it's not in your jeans. It's McDonald's that's keeping you that way. Again, that's the question of the day. What are the misconceptions about what you teach? And if you want to make it personal, what are the misconceptions about what you do or who you are? Here's a podcasting example. I get emails all the time from people who say something like, "You're really smooth on the mic." And I am, sort of, but not like it sounds. I make a lot of mistakes when I do a podcast because, as I mentioned on the previous episode, I work from bullets. I'm thinking on the fly. And sometimes it comes out wrong. The smoothness that you hear, it comes from editing. And if you're curious exactly how not smooth it is attached to this episode, I've got some outtakes. You're going to hear the real deal, how it comes out of my mouth, straight into the microphone, how it sounds with no editing. And then you're going to be eternally grateful that I spend time to edit every episode. I'm telling you this, and attaching clips to the end of this episode because maybe you don't feel that smooth as a podcaster. That's a common misconception that other podcasters are smooth. It's me who's not smooth. But the truth is, a lot of people are not smooth, and that's okay. It's okay to be not smooth. You get better as you go, and there is always editing. So here's your action step. Get your pen, get your paper, outline your episode with 3 things. I want you to consider the beginning, the middle, and the end, the intro, the meat. And the meat is this: the common misconceptions about what you teach, or if you want to make it personal, the misconceptions about what you do or who you are. During that intro, you're going to say something like, there are common misconceptions about me. People often think I am one way, but I am actually bam, bam, bam. 3 things. That's the meat of the episode. Then you're going to wrap it up. The wrap up I gave you in that podcasting example, it's that everybody has their version of not smooth. Some people, of course, they're better on the mic than others, but you're not hearing those variations of that because they're being edited out. And that's why I want you to stick around after this episode is over to hear how badly I mess up. Is it badly? I don't know. Look, that's just the way that it is. Again, a common misconception. Oh, it's bad if you mess up. No, it's not. Just edit it out before people hear you. When you're doing this outline, focus on the stories. It's great if you can make these examples personal. Your stories are important, so add stories where you can, because people are listening to you. They are listening for you, not just the information that you teach. Even if you're teaching people how to do something, they're also listening to your podcast because it's enjoyable, because they like you, because it passes the time. There can be multiple reasons people listen to a podcast. A lot of times, they are not the reasons that you think. Let's say you've got a podcast on checkers. You're telling people checker strategy. Here's how to go to Cracker Barrel and beat that old guy in the rocking chair. Maybe people are listening because they want checker strategy, but maybe you're just entertaining to listen to. So bring in those stories and give them something extra, something that they cannot get elsewhere. But with that said, keep your outline short and tight. Get to the meat, the focus of the episode. Once you've got everything outlined, hit record, go for it, upload it. If you want to send it to me, bigpodcast.com is the website. That is it for today. And right now, before you outline, hit record button and get me that show, I want you to do this. Go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss what's coming up. This is a 30-day process, and it's not just random stuff. I'm giving you elements that you're going to add into your bigger podcast, the normal podcast episodes that you are doing. These elements are going to make listeners more attracted to you. They're going to get them personally invested in you and your story. They're going to make them want to subscribe and come back for more. So make sure you get all 30 days of the 30-day solo podcast challenge by going to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. And while you were there, I've got a free podcast toolkit for you, 25 episode templates. I've got social media templates. I've got guest permission forms, release forms that your guests can fill out. They will legally protect you from somebody coming back to you or going to the internet provider and saying, this guy's using content without my permission, shut him down. These forms can literally save your podcast and keep you out of court. I am not over-exaggerating when I say that. So go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe to get them, and I will see you on the next episode of the 30-day solo podcast challenge. When you do a solo podcast, you've got flexibility. You can release that. When you've got a solo podcast, you've got ultimate. When you've got a solo, don't like your intro, change it. Don't like the sponsor, fire him. Fire your sponsors. Double your sponsors. Do whatever you want. Kick your sponsor to the. As you get to know your listeners, you're going to find. As you get to know each of your listeners, you're going to find you are going to find that there are patterns. As you get to know your listeners, you're going to find. As you get to know each of your listeners, you're going to find you are going to find that there are patterns.